Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A roll call, please. Here.
Robert Hollis.
Here.
Steve Ballage.
Here.
Ray Timonella. Lawrence Staley Carey. Here. Denise Goldman. Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. We have minutes from May 10th. Any additions or corrections?
Move.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. New business. We have case 6298-M. Kim, you want to give us an update?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Chairman Weigel and committee members. Zoning case 6298-M takes place in Joliet Township. The applicant requests a map amendment from R5 to E1 for the purpose of allowing a 1,520 square foot pole building for personal storage and to allow for the keeping of one horse. The case went before the Will County Planning and Zoning Committee on June 7th and was denied with a vote of 1 to 5. The property consists of 5 one-acre parcels that have been consolidated into a single 5-acre lot. The applicant has filed for a building permit to construct a new residence with attached garage. Upon approval of the amendment, he proposes to construct a pole building and keep one horse. The general location of the property is within a plotted subdivision of White and Nichols subdivision, west of Briggs and north of Interstate 80. The property is currently zoned R5, and the surrounding neighborhood is zoned R5. The amendment is not consistent with the Will County Land Resource Plan. The area is urban in form, and there are no other rural estate E1 zone properties in the general area. This type of zoning would be considered spot zoning. Staff recommends denial of map amendment from R5 to E1. This concludes staff analysis.
Thank you. Any questions by the committee? The staff recommends denial. Is the petitioner here? No. Are there any objectors here? Okay. Would you like to come down one at a time and state your objection? State your name, please.
Good morning. My name is Robert Fritz. I own a home at 508 South Heber. My son and his family currently live there. They're in the process of purchasing from me. This is a case of dad helping his son. I'm going to repeat probably a lot, but I can get through this in a minute or two. I grew up directly behind this house that I now own. I've been in this neighborhood 57 out of my 61 years. I'm here to speak against the E1 zoning because it's 5 acres. It allows 5 of each: horses, heads of cattle, goat, sheep, even pigs. It's a potential small farm in the middle of a residential area. I was at both the planning and zoning meetings speaking against this. Mr. Gonzalez talks of only one horse. There was even talk of keeping the R5 zoning with a special use permit. And I'm also against that too. I've done some internet research on the care and upkeep of horses. You know, I was using the University Extension Services sites. And these are all averages, but because a horse can get up to 2,200 pounds. They say the average horse is 1,000 pounds, eats 27 pounds of feed a day, produces 45 to 50 pounds of manure, produces 2.4 gallons of urine, And an owner should remove a third of the bedding each day, which is usually urine soaked and, with manure in there. That's usually 8 to 15 pounds. So all of this waste would need to be stored daily. Where would you store it? You have odors, smells, flies. And then also on his plot of survey, he shows a line, which I believe is his pasture or fence line. This line is 70 feet off of Heber. The streets over there are narrow. It's an old subdivision, so that they didn't have the ordinances in that back then. But it's only 20 feet wide. The front door of this house that I own is 35 feet off of Heber. So that means his pasture, his horse, could be as close as 125 feet to the front door of the home, and no further than 377 feet to the far back corner of the pole building. All the homes on Heber have private wells in their front yards, and I believe this is too close to the drinking water supply. I have here staff reports. Valuable money and time are spent on these. I think it's an important tool, but the same thing, the E1 zoning is inconsistent, not suitable for keeping the horses. It doesn't comply with the Will County Land Resource Management Plan, and they recommend denial, and even the Planning Commission, 5-1. I have a few letters from neighbors that couldn't attend today, voicing that they're against this, and there's also some other neighbors here that are against it. I thank you. I don't know, is there any questions?
Any questions by the committee?
I have a quick question. That 5 acres, his home's on there, the way it looks like a subdivision's around 5 acres.
It's completely surrounded by homes.
Okay, what's on it now?
It's a vacant land. It's been vacant, like I say, the 57 years I've been involved over there the whole time.
He wants to build a barn then.
Okay.
But it's completely surrounded.
There's not farmed or anything there?
No.
They don't?
No, it's a vacant lot.
And they just mow it?
Occasionally, but not very often.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak? Please come down.
Do you want these letters?
Give them to the secretary.
Okay.
State your names, please.
My name is Wesley Contreras.
Ana Contreras.
I'm going to represent my mom. She speaks Spanish. So. We live in 510 South Heber, just right across from the field, and we object to it just because of, same thing, just with a horse, having a horse. I've actually family that has farms, and they said just one horse can do a lot of, like manure and stuff and the smell. And just for that area, I mean, there's gonna, with living there, we're gonna have a lot of, manure, the smell, the flies that comes with it. And then also our concern is the upkeep to it. Once he gets it, how long would it take? Would it take a year? Would he keep upkeeping the horse, and his own property? And then also our concern was in the future, we ever went to sell the property, that would affect our, affect the selling, of the property, just because there's a farm across the street, and it all depends on how well he upkeeps it. And that's our biggest concern is, just having animals, the smell, the flies, the waste from the animal, the upkeep. That's a huge factor to us, and so I don't know if there's other ones.
I live for 40 years in the back, and I like it peaceable. I don't want to, animals and chickens and everything that I wake in the morning. I want to live like this. Because
same with her concern, you know, we've been there, she's been there for more than 40 years. And I've been there for 26 years. I live in Joliet, I'm 32. It's second home to me, you know. Dad passed away, so I kind of, now I'm always there with my mom, so it's just to have that across the street.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have anything new to add? State your names, please.
Alejandro Alvarado.
Soledad Alvarado.
It's my mom. I own 6R Oakview Avenue, which is basically right behind the pole barn where he's gonna build 100 feet Oakview. She owns 520 Oakview, which she's directly right behind that pole barn. Our concern, well, my dad actually, he's not here right now, but the drainage on that lot there, everything goes to the back of my mom's house, which is 520. And it goes back to the other neighbor's house too. He's not here right now. But if he's gonna have horses, you know, all the manure, all the urine, all that's gonna go towards the back when it rains. What happens when that rains? You know, all that breaks down and you get a worse smell. Nobody wants that. I got kids. I got my daughter, 10-year-old daughter. I got my 2.5-year-old son there, always running around. I don't want that, you know, them to step in the mud where all the horse manure and all that goes down there. Walk in the house, your house is gonna smell like that, you know? I try to maintain the yard clean. That lot, he hasn't cut that lot since the beginning of the year. It's high. You get coyotes back there. I had to chase one out of my yard because my dog was going wild because he's seen a coyote first thing in the morning. You get a couple foxes, skunks, groundhogs back there. You know, I try to keep the edge of my fence line clean so I can see if they're going back and forth or whatever. But you gotta maintain it. That's showing me he's not maintaining the yard, the property. You know, if you're maintaining, the county or the township just cuts the front of it. You know, if the county cuts it, guess what? Cut your yard, break it down, get a tractor, whatever you gotta do, maintain it down, you won't have critters in it. So that's basically my opinion, my mom's opinion, that, you know, if you're not gonna maintain it, you can't maintain a horse. Simple as that.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Mr. Gonzalez, at the last meeting, was advised that maybe he might consider special use. Has he applied for anything else?
He did stop into the land use department and he was advised of his options. Another option that was presented to him was to amend from the R5 zoning district to R1. The keeping of animals is a special use in the R1 district. What that would require him to do would be to request the map amendment, the special use permit, and an additional variance, which would be needed for the maximum building accessory area for the whole building. It would exceed the allowed 1,500 square feet.
And has he applied for any of that?
He opted to move forward with his original request.
Thank you.
So he could come back later and request this change to R1, and then we could put conditions on it, such as one horse, and that the horse would go away when they leave the property or sold the property, and also the manure would have to be in containers. We could put those conditions on that.
That is correct. A special use permit can be conditioned.
Okay,
If you were to reapply.
Yes.
okay. Any other questions? Do we have a motion to approve?
I motion to concur with the land use.
I'll make a motion to approve, and then we'll deny it if you want to deny it.
All right.
Motion to approve, second? All in favor? Let's have a roll call, please.
Denise Winfrey,
No.
Judy O'Connell, Robert Howard,
Yes.
Steve Ballage,
No.
let's see, Lauren Staley Ferry. And Chairman Weigel.
No. Okay, 3-1, so it's denied. We'll go to county board with a recommendation of a May 9. Okay, other business, we have a pre-authorization to foreclose industrial park. Jim?
Good morning, everyone. Schoolhouse Industrial Park approved 2004 and starts construction by that time. All property improvements already done. Right now, LOMAR left. LOMAR means the letter of map revision that be approved by FEMA. I contacted the engineer yesterday. They are working on that right now. So that request going to expire August. We ask pre-authorization in case the request be non-extension. So that's the schoolhouse industrial park.
So we should vote to foreclose right now, and they can, if they finish it, they'll, we can pull the letter.
Yes, if they finish, we can release letter credit. And it sounds like we can finish this year, but in case we have to get the paperwork ready. So they renew every year for the credit since 2004.
Okay. We need a motion to foreclose. A motion.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item, Echo Housing. David?
Good morning. The Land Development Committee has discussed the ECHO provisions with the zoning ordinance, and comments received as prior committee level discussions included changes to require again a special use permit for all ECHO units in the county. The comments pertain to different types of units, the sizes of units, eligibility issues, and things of that nature. And the department reviewed the matter internally and has brought back the recommendation to address the committee's concerns, basically to return it to the way it was prior to 2012, the way the county operated for approximately 34 years. And so the text amendments that is before you would amend the zoning ordinance to reinstate the special use permit requirement in the A1, A2, E1, E2, and R1 through R3 zoning districts. And then what it would do is move the specific supplementary requirements for ECHO units from the permitted accessory use section to the supplementary use section. So in essence, what the text amendment does is reverts back to the prior process before 2012.
Okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead. Put your speaker.
Can you give us a clip note version of that, of the prior to 2012? Hit the highlights on it?
It requires a special use permit,
Okay.
and the specific requirements will remain the same.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Is there any objectors or public comment concerning this? No. Okay. Yeah.
So if the committee, if this is acceptable to the committee, what I'd recommend is the committee make a recommendation to send it to public hearing with the Planning and Zoning Commission. And then what we would do is do the appropriate notices and notifications and go through the process.
Okay. Do we have a motion to that effect?
Second.
Motion, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next is the fueling stations. David?
Sure. Okay. I know, the committee, again, the discussions regarding the level of intensity of multiple uses on the property with regard to, or the gas stations with convenience stores and drive-throughs and car washes and diesel fueling stations. And what I've done is hopefully, try to hit the mark with regard to trying to address some of these issues. And what the text changes before you do is changes the definition of motor vehicle fueling station and basically makes subcategories where you have a minor vehicle fueling station, and more specifically is that it has limited capacity to fuel no more than 8 vehicles simultaneously. So what does that mean? Basically 4 pump islands. So it's a relatively small gas station. And that designated and tractor trailer and truck pump islands are prohibited in those types of fueling stations. So you can't have a standalone high canopy designated tractor trailer fueling station. So it tries to reduce the scale of that. Then we added a major vehicle fueling station, which again is engaged in retail sales of automobile vehicle fuels. The capacity is limited not to exceed 12 vehicles simultaneously, which is basically 6 pump islands, and no more than 1 designated tractor trailer or truck pump island. Then you can fuel no more than like 2 trucks at a time. So that's basically one pump, one pump island. Major vehicle fueling stations, they can include drive-throughs and car wash cleaning services, and or be processed as a special use permit as a plan unit development. Whereas the minor can't include drive-throughs or car wash facilities. They can have convenience stores on the minor, but not the drive-throughs and car washes. And then the third category would be a travel plaza. And that's where you see the larger facilities that engage in the servicing, the storage, and the park and repair of the commercial vehicles, the sales, where you have equipment, accessories for over-the-road trucking. They may have overnight vehicle parking, showers, restaurants, and other services utilized for the over-the-road trucking or travelers. And those are more intense that you see, particularly along interstate traffic. And then to address that, those are more specifically identified then in the use table as subcategories, where you have minor motor vehicle, again, those are the smaller facilities that would be a special use in the C1 and C2 districts and permitted in C3, C4, and I1, 2, and 3 districts. So in the least intense commercial districts, where it's, those districts are intended to primarily serve the neighborhood, those can be done on a case-by-case basis as a special use for the smaller facilities. The major motor vehicle fueling stations, again, the ones that are the plan unit development, where you have the drive-throughs, the car washes, the truck canopies, and things of that nature, would be a special use in the C4, I1, 2, and 3 zoning districts. And then the travel plazas, the big ones, C4 and I2 and I3 zoning districts. And the reason for the I2 and I3 is if an unincorporated county ever gets a larger motor facility or something of that nature, then we can hopefully have a facility perhaps to try to augment that economic engine. Then the car wash and cleaning service in the use table is changed from a permitted use in the C4 district to a special use. So if you have a car wash now, it's basically a special use in the C2, C3, and C4 zoning districts, and then permitted in the I1, I2, and I3 zoning districts. And that's, a lot of information there, but that's in summary the changes.
Okay. Any questions by committee? Steve?
What about gas stations that are, they're large gas stations, but they're not set up for truckers, they're set up for cars, where they have probably 6, 7 bays, I guess you want to call it, where they can pull and they get fuel, and there's 2 in each bay setups, and then they go in and you go to the Dunkin' Donuts and You don't have a car wash necessarily, but you could. But what about something like that? Where does that fit?
Well, again, it's you're looking at how many vehicles can be serviced at one time. And so with the minor, that'd be no more than 8 vehicles with 4 pumps. Okay, there's no drive-through, there's no car wash, and you could have a Dunkin' still inside with a convenience store, but you can't service more than 8 vehicles. So if there's a concern that that's too limiting by the committee, we could increase the number of vehicles to be serviced at the minor and still not allow a drive-through and car wash or a truck unit. I don't know, does that address your concern?
Well, yeah, I live in a municipality, obviously, so it doesn't, you wouldn't have the same rules, but there's gas stations where they're smaller in size, but then there's some that are a lot bigger, where they can hold more than the number of cars you said. Maybe 16 cars could go at one time. Or what if one of your gas station decides that, like, one service station we have has a car wash right next to it, and I think it's 4, so it'd be 8. And you can have 8 stalls.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 8 times 2, it'd be 8.
Wow.
But they also have Dunkin' Donuts. And then right next to that, they have a thing where they're selling mulch and that kind of stuff. So, what if we want a gas station like that wants to come in? You said a bunch of things, but I think you maybe can narrow it down and make it so it's not so complicated. Because I think Jim brought up the issue to begin with, and was trying to uncomplicate the thing, and you've got too many variables.
I'm going to ask a question. I think that I'll answer your question.
Go ahead, Jim.
Number one, on minor stores, smaller stores, should we limit the size of the convenience store? As an example, because a small operation could have 6 pumps and you can have a 20,000 square foot convenience store. It kind of defeats the whole, kind of circumvents perhaps the intention. So we might want to look at the size of the stores that would be allowed. My question is really these multi kind of plex stations where you have mega car washes. You might have more than one building. You have food operations. You can have convenience stores. You can have drive-throughs. When it comes to those type of stations, is that where the code then comes into play to say you'll have so much, you're going to have so much stacking for cars based on what you're putting in? You're going to have a certain separation between buildings. You have to show a safe traffic flow. You have to have ample parking. So I'm trying to see where does that come under zoning, or does it come under the building code or design, or do we, we've talked about perhaps that these are all 10-unit developments, at least the large ones. So how do those issues get addressed? Because those seem to be the issues with the communities. They don't want cars stacking out onto the streets or and so forth. So where does that come into this?
It's under the minor, the smaller stations, and we tried to limit, I guess, the traffic flow is one of the drivers in the stacking is the pumps, by limiting the number of pump limits. And then also eliminating the possibility of drive-throughs and car washes, which again are drivers of stacking vehicles. So in the less intense commercial zoning districts, if you limit the size of those would be permitted uses. Now, when you speak of more expansive facilities like the one we had in Harlem, the ones that include a drive-through and a car wash, those would specifically require a plan unit development. And the thing is you have to keep in mind is that, really one of the drivers here is the number of pump islands at the facility and then the specific uses of car washes and drive-throughs. Because within different commercial zoning districts, there's a lot of retail uses that are permitted by right anyways. So if they didn't have a gas station or a car wash or a drive-through, they could have multiple commercial uses within a building that'd be permitted by right.
Within the building?
Yes.
Not multiple buildings?
Well, there can be outlots or there can be multiple buildings on a commercial lot. And
Oh, that's true.
some jurisdictions to deal with this, and I believe Homewood Glen may have actually done it, is they require planning and development for any development on all commercial property. And that's how they address the specific on-site requirements. Now, I'm not sure if the county wants to go that far, and what I was trying to do was address specifically the larger gas station convenience retail that had the car wash and the drive-through and things of that nature. I wasn't trying to go beyond that.
I have a few questions. One is a charging station included in this?
Yes.
Okay, so that would be up to 8 vehicles, including a charging station?
No, the charging stations are considered accessory, they're not regulated as auto fueling stations.
Okay.
So those kinds of units or charging stations could be, in a lot of commercial or commercially zoned property. You'll see these electric vehicle
Sure.
charging stations, for instance, at Tinley Park, and these Brookside Crossings in front of the Target. There's 2 units there for people to come up, and it's only for them to park there, for them to encourage them to charge a vehicle. So those are accessory.
Yeah, okay. The second question I have is like, with everything changes, I mean, we're continually developing new business models, that kind of stuff. So sometimes you have to wonder if they're actually building a gas station with a Dunkin' Donuts in it, or are you building a Dunkin' Donuts with a gas station outside of it? Who's complementing who at this point in time? So my concern is that we're actually giving a couple different models here. I just wondered what we used as the model for this. I mean, is it, if we say, okay, we have eight vehicles or whatever, the industry standard is that they have enough fuel tanks for 12 vehicles or something like that. Something that's a standard. I mean, did we go in depth and look at that, or is this basically predicated upon prior submittals to us, or how did this whole thing work as far as?
The concern that I had heard was traffic circulation and stacking. And when we looked at what other jurisdictions do to address the size of these types of facilities, many use the fueling capacity on site.
Okay.
And
Is
so
8
that's-
a common number?
I don't know, I can't recall specifically who uses 8 or who uses 10 or who uses 12. I try to be reasonable about it and look at what other jurisdictions do.
Okay, in the future, I've actually seen, now they're developing with Tesla with the cars, okay? Actually, I was out in California recently, very, very popular model, the Tesla. Now they're looking at doing semi-trucks, big trucks. And they actually have the technology they feel as if they can do it, that's going to pick up trucks, something like that. Now, what happens if eventually we have electric charging station entities, no more gas stations? I mean, are we looking that forward on it, or, as far as how we're gonna regulate that? Does that fall into this here?
I mean, it's always going to look forward, but the predominant market right now is only for passenger vehicles.
Okay.
So that's what this addresses.
Okay. Okay, I'd like you to see,
Ordinance can always be amended with market changes.
yeah. Well, again, I don't want to prohibit anybody from looking at a particular area. That's my concern, is that we hamstring business in some point, in time with something that, we should be first and foremost on it if we are going to dictate how many fueling stations you're allowed to have. My concern is that we're doing the right research on it, that's all. So I'm sure you have, but, it's something that I'm interested in, so.
Okay.
Okay, as far as the small station, the lowest level, maybe we should limit the building, say to 1,000 square feet or something like that.
I guess one question I would have is that before we would make a decision on that, would you like us to look into perhaps what other jurisdictions do regarding these types of retail uses to see, if there are standards for these types of facilities and buildings?
I would say that a typical standalone convenience store, without having other businesses in it, is probably typically around 10, 12,000 square feet. I mean, that would be a smaller convenience store.
That sounds pretty big.
I know, well, when you consider though, Tom, that if 10,000 square feet may only give them 7,000 square feet or 6,000 square feet of sales space.
Okay.
The rest is for back rooms, storage,
Yeah.
Counters, coolers. So when I'm talking about the gross square footage of a building. By the time it's built out, you may have 5,000 square feet of actual sales space.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, should we research that some more, or?
No, can take a look at it. I don't think 10,000 would be unreasonable. I think it's a reasonable number. I think you start making it less than that, then I think you're.
Yeah, especially in the unincorporated areas, couple of what we're dealing with. I mean, first of all, you go in there and you got your cash wrap, your sales area. Then you also have your handicap bathrooms. They're mandated by a certain size on that. If you want to add additional stalls, so I think we have to be very, very careful when we dictate how many square feet we're going to actually allow, because the other side is in an unincorporated areas where they're targeting these. Some of these are fresh food stores, not literally. They look like a grocery store. I know if you stop at some of the ones along the newer ones along Harlem there, it's a grocery store inside. It's a local grocery store. So again, and as Jim said, the cooler space, the walk-in coolers behind the area, that kind of stuff like that. So I think again we need to look at industry standards and
I would just take a look at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be between 10 and 12,000 square feet.
And when we come back, one thing we'll have to talk and consider is, if you don't have the fueling station, the pump islands, in a commercial zoning district, if somebody wants to develop a raw land site, put up a commercial strip or a commercial retail without gas, the limitations, building coverage, and perhaps what the stormwater management requirements would be. And you wouldn't have a square footage max if you don't have the gas station. So we can talk about that more, but what we can do is look and see what industry standard is for, these types of uses, and let you know next month.
Thank you.
Okay. Just state the obvious here that when we come back with that research on industry standards, whatever decision that the committee made at that time would be a tentative one, just in terms of the language that would go out for public hearing. And of course, we would try to solicit business input about proposed changes, so that whatever final determination was made on this subject would likely occur after industry and commercial businesses had an opportunity to talk about on the tentative draft language that you have put out for public review. So my point being that whatever tentative decision we make initially at the committee level is not the final decision. There will be a public hearing, and business will have an opportunity to respond, and you can then modify the proposal accordingly.
I agree with that. Okay. So David, you want to check into industry standards concerning that?
Sure.
And bring it back next month? Okay. So no other discussion on that? We move on. As far as reports and communications, I have no report. Committee members, any comments?
We actually, some of us are members of the legislative and policy prior to. I think maybe we need to look at our start time and adjust it a little bit again. And I think it needs to be very clear that this one doesn't start, or we don't feel pressured to get to this one to start, because what's happening is today we had a full agenda at legislative and policy. So I think in the future, I think we'd add that verbiage, 10 a.m. start.
I agree. I think we should probably change it to 10:30.
Well, I think we might want to do or following the legislative. So
Yeah.
that way, whenever legislative.
Yeah, because you have like 3 or 4 committee members that are on there. We're trying to get out of there,
I think Denise hit it on the head.
Yeah.
It could be
10:15 or following, or you
Correct.
could just say following the link, you don't even have to put a time.
Well, you should have some, you have to have some start time.
The public
So say
needs to
10
know.
o'clock,
Yeah,
following,
10 a.m.
following.
10 a.m.
Or following the land use.
Yeah.
Okay, we could do that. yeah.
I mean, because we're tying up staff too, so that's the other side of it. So maybe 10:30, like you said.
You have any comments concerning start time?
Well, most of the time we're able to get here. You know, so
No.
it's close.
Right, 2 out of 10.
Maybe make it 10:15 or following the land use.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll talk to powers that be and we'll change it.
No, it's just a friendly suggestion, because it's very difficult to get.
Okay, Director, any comments?
No, sir.
Okay, any public comment? Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Motion, second, all in favor, say aye.
All right.
We're adjourned.